The cost of following our dreams can be steep. I'm rather amused because I have been trying not to do this, but this is actually my second attempt at this video for today. I just finished a 20-minute ramble that I think made absolutely no sense, so I deleted it. I am trying to get my thoughts together on this topic, but I feel like it's an important thing to discuss because we often, as a group, as humanity, we often talk about trying to pursue our dreams. And many of us never get the opportunity because life can throw obstacles in our way, and we may have to make decisions that are opposite of what we dream of doing or dream of achieving. But if we are lucky enough to be able to pursue our dreams, there is still a cost involved. And I'm talking about cost in several different ways. Obviously, there is a financial cost because, for example, with JT and I, to pursue our dream of being self published authors, we have decided to start our own company, Two More Books LLC. So we went through the process. We hired a lawyer. We did everything we needed to do to make sure we were meeting all the appropriate requirements on a legal level, which there was quite the upfront cost with that. The reason we decided to create an LLC was to protect our personal assets in case something happens, because you never know. We can be a litigious society. Excuse me. So we understood that cost up front, and we were willing to do it because hopefully it will prevent us from having to spend more in the future if something should happen, or at least it will protect us from losing everything, we hope. But then there is also the regular costs involved in producing a book. So I apologize, I need a quick drink. Probably should have done this before I started the video, but okay. So after our upfront cost of doing that, there's obviously the cost of the websites. We have a couple of websites that we use. We have one for our main, our podcasts, our books, and all of that. And that would be carsonhume.com, www.carsonhume.com. We have a secondary website called www.twomorebooks.com that we use to post our Nevada Author Network podcasts. We could probably streamline that, but at this point we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We have the cost of editing, and JT and I have both had books with our editors recently, which we have to budget because our pension is a certain amount each month, and we have not earned enough income from our publishing to actually cover the cost of our editing just yet. So there is that cost. There is the cost of our cover design. And these are things that we could probably not get around, not. I apologize. My brain is still really scrambled. We could probably produce books without paying to these external vendors, basically, is what we do. We are paying our vendors the services that we're using through our company, and we could probably get away with doing that or not doing that or finding someone less expensive, but we are happy with the people that we've been using. So for this point in time, we're going to continue using them. We've also found out that things, they keep moving the goalposts sometimes. For example, we have a business bank account for our company, and there was a requirement that we have a certain amount of money in that account to make sure we didn't have a monthly fee. And of course, that changed, and we were charged the fee because we weren't maintaining the minimum balance. And, it may have been something that fell through the crack where they did notify us, but it wasn't an obvious notification that we, bright lights, flashing. It's like, oh, yes, it's something from the bank, and we probably just put it aside and maybe didn't really notice that they were going to start charging a fee if we didn't have even more money in our account. So things like that can happen. For example, our editors will probably become more expensive because they obviously have their own expenses to cover, and it is a vicious cycle that if one thing becomes more expensive, then pretty much everything else will as well. And other things are not keeping pace with those expenses. For example, our pensions are pretty well set. We're not really going to be getting raises, so to speak, in our pension because we get a certain amount each month based on our time in service. And, you know, we all have a good idea of how that works. So there's definitely a financial cost of following our dreams. And for this moment in time, we are still able to meet those costs, even though we are not making the income through our publishing to cover them at this point. And this is where it starts getting into the emotional toll of, or the emotional cost of following your dreams, is when you are disappointed by the fact that you're not quite achieving the goals that you want to on a financial level, for example. We wish we would sell enough books to be able to cover all of our upfront costs. And, without putting out more money in things like marketing, all we can do really is go to the third cost of following our dreams, which is more physical, by actually going out to events and trying to promote ourselves face to face as much as possible, and taking any free opportunity we can find to promote ourselves, because marketing can get very expensive financially very quickly, and there's not always a great return on the investment for most people, even big names. I think I don't know, marketing is beyond me. But so I've talked about the financial cost, the emotional cost, and the physical cost of following our dreams, specifically related to JT and I and our publishing journey. And I'm thinking about this because we did our event yesterday, and for the first time, we actually broke even on the cost of our booth fee. And that is another upfront cost for us. We might call it a marketing cost because we kind of tag on to the events and market to the surrounding areas as we are doing these events. And we do that on our social media platforms. And I don't know how effective any of that is, but the upfront cost of paying for the booth gets us a little bit of return on marketing. But we're also hoping that maybe we sell enough of our books to be able to cover not just the cost of the booth fee, but all the other upfront costs that we're putting out to promote or to publish our books. So while we did earn back enough to cover our booth fee yesterday, we did not make enough to cover all of our other costs. And that again goes into the emotional territory where we are disappointed. We are a little frustrated because we are trying everything possible to be realistic, to not overspend, considering we do have, we are on a fixed income. There's just two ways around it. And we're not alone in that. I know that because I was looking at all the other vendors at the event yesterday, and we get there, we get set up, everybody's all excited and ready to go. And then inevitably, as the day progresses, you watch everybody's faces become a little bit more down, and they become a little bit more tired. Their shoulders are drooping, they're staring at their phone because there's nobody coming over to talk to them. And I feel especially bad for anyone who is using these kind of events to sell a product that they're hoping will help them make ends meet, because it is a very big challenge. And everyone right now is financially strapped because the economy is kind of a mess. And not going into politics or anything here, I'm just, it is what it is. The dollar is not going as far as it used to, or whatever form of currency you happen to be using in your country. And I do think it is a global problem now. So I'm sure we all understand, all of us vendors who were at the event yesterday, we all understand that people have a very limited amount of budget or a limited amount above our budget to buy frivolous items. For example, the booth across from us had some very beautiful candles, which I was tempted to go buy some, but you know, if I'm going to buy things at an event where I'm trying to sell things, I'm hoping that I actually sell things first so we can actually break even, which is usually the case when we do these events. Is I kind of get distracted by the neighbors and maybe buy things that I shouldn't, and then we end up spending more money than we make, and it's a vicious cycle. But I understand the disappointment of others who are um, really relying on these kind of events to make ends meet in trying times. It may not be their full-time job, it may just be a sideline, but it is very disappointing. And you know, the person who was making and selling the candles, that may be their dream as well. And they understand that there is a cost of pursuing that dream, but that doesn't make it any easier when the disappointments happen. So, what I wanted to do today is come on, and hopefully, I've been a little bit more coherent about this than I was in my first attempt, but just to remind everyone that there is a cost to our dreams, whether it be physical, emotional, or financial. Um, Dreams are not cheap or easy. And if they are truly something that we hope to pursue, we have to be willing to pay the cost because otherwise, is it really something that you want to pursue? So I'm not trying to be discouraging. What I'm trying to do is be realistic and remind us, all of us, that there are some costs that we should be willing to bear if that's something that we really want to do. And when we're feeling disappointed, when we're having the really difficult emotional days, and, it's okay to take a little break and say, I can't work on it today. For example, I'm probably not working on my manuscript today because, like I said, the brain is scrambled. And I'm a little bit disappointed that I have not gotten it cleaned up more than I have at this point, but it may be going to my editors on Wednesday without any more revisions. And I have to be okay with that because I've made the arrangement to get this book into editing. I'm very eager to get it into editing so it will be ready for publication in October. And hopefully I can balance all the changes I need to make to get it to be the best thing possible. But it's definitely reminding me of the cost of following our dreams. So, again, not trying to be discouraging at all. I just want us all to be realistic and remember that for most people, dreams don't just happen. Not all of us have a wonderful mentor who'll come and walk us through the process, or somebody who may want to fund what we're doing. I know a lot of people try to do things like Kickstarter to publish books, and I could not see that working for me because JT and I, have not been able to find people who are really, I don't know if they're invested in us, maybe, on a physical and emotional level to want to support us and promote us. And I don't know if that would ever happen. But without that kind of help and support, we end up bearing the full cost of our dreams. And we have to be realistic about the fact that those costs are there. But we also have to understand that if we are not willing to pay those costs, and maybe that's not a dream we should be pursuing. So that's my little chat for the day about dreams versus reality, I guess. But I definitely wanted to talk about the costs of our dreams because JT and I have definitely been feeling the costs a lot. And we'll bounce back in the other direction. We inevitably do. We often will sit down and tell each other how happy we are. We are pursuing our lifelong dream of publishing our own books. And we are hopeful that we will, and end up at some point being able to at least make ends meet, if not earning a little extra income so that we can grow our business. Because there are other things that we would like to do with our little publishing company. We still want to put out audiobooks, but at this point in time, we cannot afford to hire a narrator, and you know, we are not going to use AI, at least not willingly, even though a lot of the products that we use are really trying to push AI on us. And that's a whole different ballgame. I'm not even going to get into that right now, but that does add to the emotional cost of pursuing our dream, because sometimes it feels like AI is trying to take over everything. We know, obviously people are behind AI and people are trying to make money. And it is really frustrating that certain people seem to be really good at making money. And money is not the be all end all of existence. And, maybe when these people started out, it was just a small dream that they were trying to pursue. But I was talking to somebody yesterday, actually, at a neighboring booth. She was promoting farm to table produce, and they have a service where you can get a subscription to local farms and they provide you produce. And she was talking about how some of her favorite, I think it was a cheesemaker in specific, uh, like a local cheesemaker had to sell out to a bigger company. And obviously, the product began to suffer as a result of being gobbled up by the bigger company, because then the bigger company tries to cut their costs and they're not doing things in the same way that the artisanal cheesemaker was doing it. They were more on a natural basis. And so, I'm sure the artisanal cheesemaker probably ended up selling out because they had achieved their dream up to a point and maybe they could not bear the cost of following that dream any longer. And it does happen. So these big companies that are gobbling up the smaller companies, I have to think that somewhere along the line, when they first started out, they were somebody's dream, but then they become kind of these emotionless automatons where money is the bottom line to everything, and they kind of lose sight of what the original dream was. And that's a shame. But in the process, they're also making it harder for other people to achieve their dreams because, as I mentioned, our economy is rough right now. Things have gotten very expensive, and many people are going to try to find the most affordable option for themselves, even that if that means buying their produce from, the big corporations and buying their books from Amazon. We have 99-cent books on Amazon and we make very few cents off of them if we happen to sell any. But meanwhile, the people who own and run Amazon are making a lot more money than we are off the products that everybody, we and other authors like us, we are putting our products up there because we have few other options to get our work out there. So we get a small cut back on that product, whereas the big company that is pushing it out for us gets a pretty decent cut. So sometimes it feels like we are working for other people still to this day, and we're trying to find the balance in that. But in the meantime, we are continuing to bear the costs of following our dreams, even if those costs are the disappointment of having to work with somebody like Amazon. If I could buy a printing press and put out my own books, I don't know. Would I make any more money? Who knows? I've actually played with the idea of, would it be kind of fun to do my own little printing company where I could print my own books on demand and just print enough copies to go to events, and maybe people would be interested in a book that was bound by the author. Who knows? But then how would I be able to expand on that? Because I can't put out enough books. Whereas a company like Amazon, again, and obviously no way sponsored here, I'm just using them because they are such a common example of where people are getting their products these days, that It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, basically. So, in order to continue doing what we're doing, sometimes we have to work with people we don't want to work with. And, at some point, maybe we could figure out another way to do it. But for right now, we don't have any other options. So, bottom line, just be aware of the costs of following your dreams, whatever they happen to be, whether you're a writer, whether you're a photographer, whether you're a painter, a metal worker. There are so many different things that people enjoy doing that they may not be able to do for various reasons. But if you are able to try to follow your dreams, just remember that there are costs involved, and as long as you're willing to bear those costs, and definitely continue to follow your dreams, because I think dreams are so important, and they're, really what make life fun. It is challenging to get through the day sometimes. So even when we're following our dreams and we're happy doing it, I hope that made sense. And I hope I'm not disappointing or discouraging anyone, because that is not my intention at all. What I'm really hoping is that somewhere along the line, we'll kind of have a groundswell where the people who are kind of, I guess, at the bottom of the ladder right now, um, we can rise up a little bit and at least start trying to catch up with the people who are standing up at the top looking down at us, because it would be nice to see more successes from people like JT and myself. And, I'm not saying it should be us. I would like at least a little bit of it to be us, but I also want it to be you, for example. I would be happy to invest in you if I was able to at this point in time. But if I can't do it financially, I hope I can provide support and encouragement to you and tell you that your dreams are important and you should pursue them. And, there are other people like you out here who are also trying to do the same thing, and that we need to stick together, and we'll see what happens. Things can always change. Even though it's kind of a mess right now and very discouraging, tomorrow could be a completely different ball game. We never know what's going to happen when we get up in the morning. And I can only hope that maybe tomorrow it'll be a lot easier for us to bear the cost of following our dreams. So, as always, I thank you for joining me on this journey through the mess that is my mind. I hope this did make some sense in some ways, that I do provide you a little encouragement and support, because, like I said, really that's all I can offer right now. If we actually do become more financially successful, that may change. And I honestly would love to buy everybody's books. I do buy a lot of books from fellow local authors, which is another reason that we don't make ends meet. But I'm trying to help encourage and, their dreams. And I've read a lot of fun books that way too. So, I just hope that you're having a wonderful day. It is Monday as I'm recording this. It is May 11th. We're in the middle of May already. Pretty much, it's getting close. Things are getting warm here in northern Nevada. I hope it's comfortable where you are and that you have a wonderful week ahead. I thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to checking in with you again tomorrow. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Take care.